And here to talk about the Senate Democrats' debt limit increase proposal, Republican Senator Rand Paul. Nice to see you, sir.
Good to be with you.
So how much in the know does Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid keep the Republican side of the aisle on this debt ceiling?
I don't know, but it seems like they're very concerned with protecting us from seeing our national parks. You know, I mean, it's like guarding the highways so we can't see Mount Rushmore, you know, sending security guards to the World War II memorial. I don't know. It seems like they ought to be concerned with some bigger problems that we have.
And I guess the debt ceiling being one of them?
Yeah, and I think it is. And I think the thing is that I think what Americans don't like about this is it seems like we lurch from deadline to deadline. We don't seem to be doing anything in between times. And I think there's a lot of room where we could find common ground, but where we could also do something good for the country. It isn't just about the deadline. It's also about a $17 trillion debt. Is that harming our country? Is it harmful to our country? Should we reform our budget process?
Where is that common ground?
You know, I'm not sure exactly. It's elusive, I guess, is the way I'd describe it. But the common ground might be that we get together and we say there are things that are broken. For example, they're broken not because I broke them or Republicans did or Democrats. Social Security is broken. Medicare is broken. It's broken because we're living longer and because this population of kids is smaller than the generation of baby boomers that's retiring. These are just facts. They should just get together. When I talk to the president one-on-one, and I've sat down with him, I've said, why don't we gradually raise the age of eligibility for Social Security and Medicare? And he looks at me and says, that's not an unreasonable proposition in private. But then in public, we get all of this, oh, I'm not fixing anything if you're holding a gun to my head. Well, no, we're just trying to fix things because we want the same thing he does. We want the country to thrive, and we want to fix these entitlement programs.
Well, the things you talk to are sort of big picture issues that involve, you know, years and years and trillions of dollars. But it seems like, as you said, is that it's almost, you know, crisis management is that, you know, we get these short-term solutions. It never, I don't get the sense that Congress is sort of stepping back, House and the Senate and the President, and saying, look, these are our big problems. How are we going to solve them? Instead of sort of this panic to solve the one that's right in front of us.
It is. It's lurching from deadline to deadline, and that's with the American public. That's why we have about a 10% approval rating, is because it looks like we go from deadline to deadline.
Looks like it actually true, though. It looks like it's actually true.
It is true. But the thing is let's say you were a Democrat, and I wanted to say, let's fix Social Security, which I've said many times to them. Let's fix Social Security. And you know what they say to me? They say, well, we'll do that if you trade us a tax increase. And I was like, well, Social Security's broken, has nothing to do with raising taxes, which we think will be bad for the economy. Why don't we just fix Social Security? Part of it's we need to fix more narrow things. We tend to want to fix everything all at once in a grand bargain. And if you've got a Republican and a Democrat, you might only agree on 10% of the issues, 20%. Why don't we work on the 20% we can agree to instead of always saying we have to have a grand bargain, which never happens?
What would you like to see the President do differently? I mean, what do you think would be a step forward that make it easier on your side to get your side sort of a step closer?
There are times when I respect the President, and I'm proud of him. I was proud of him for bringing Syria to the Congress and saying we should have a debate. That's what the Constitution says. But the other times when I'm not so proud of him, for example, on the default or on defaulting over not raising the debt ceiling, he says, oh, well, we're going to default, and he scares everybody to death. If the President were a true leader, and I could be proud of him if he were a true leader, or even from the opposite party, if he said we will not default. We have never defaulted, and we will not default, and I will not use this as a political issue. But instead, he is using it as a political issue, and I don't think we'll default, nor do I think it's a good idea to default. But it's also bad for the President to be threatening default. He should be saying, I'll work with the Republicans. I will negotiate. Instead, what do we hear from the President and from Harry Reid? We will not negotiate. We will not negotiate until you give us what we want, then we'll negotiate.
But does the President say something to you in privately just said a moment ago maybe a little different than what we hear publicly?
I think there's better conversation all around between Republicans in the Senate, Democrats in the Senate, between the President. So there needs to be more conversation. So, for example, I've been in the Senate for 2 years. I've been trying to have a joint lunch where we do it regularly. And we've done a few, and it's been good. And it isn't that we sort out the nation's problems, but there's more rapport by sitting together and having lunch together, because then there's more conversation, we find common ground. And there are many times I have, like, for example, while I'm a Republican, I think there's waste in the Defense Department. I've agreed that we should audit the Pentagon. And I've worked with Democrats on that largely because I had lunch with them and they told me about their bill. And so I think there are ways we could, but we need more conversation.
Senator, always nice to see you. Thank you for joining us.